The stars had never looked so beautiful, and yet so terrifying. Captain Dominic Reeves stood on the observation deck of humanity's flagship, the Valiant Dawn, watching as the exodus unfolded before him. Thousands of vessels from hundreds of worlds streaked past like frightened fish fleeing a predator, their engines painting the void with trails of desperate light. He was a weathered man of 43, with scars that told stories his mouth never would. His eyes, a deep brown that had witnessed both wonder and horror, reflected the chaos outside. Beside him stood his tactical officer, Lieutenant Yuna Tanaka, a sharp woman whose quick mind had saved their crew more times than regulations would approve of. Her black hair was tied back in a practical bun, and her fingers drummed nervously against the railing. "Sir, the Dracian delegation just transmitted their final coordinates," she said quietly. "They estimate their entire civilization will be relocated within 16 hours. Dominic nodded but said nothing. Behind them, the door hissed open. Commander Robert Okonkwo entered, his massive frame filling the doorway. He was a giant of a man, born on the colonies of Mars, where the lower gravity had allowed him to grow tall and strong. Despite his intimidating appearance, his voice was always gentle, always measured. "Captain, High Command is requesting our departure vector," Robert said, concern etched into his features. "Tell them we don't have one," Dominic replied. The silence that followed was heavy. Yuna turned to face him fully, her eyes wide. "Sir, you cannot be serious. The silence has already consumed 9 star systems in the past week alone. The Thurion Empire, beings who had conquered death itself, they are gone. Erased. Not even their ghosts remain." Dominic turned from the window to face his crew. These were people he trusted with his life, people who had followed him through the Outer Rim conflicts and the Meridian Crisis. They deserved honesty. "I know what we face," he began, his voice steady. "The silence is not an enemy we can negotiate with or understand. They are entropy given form, oblivion with purpose. Every species with ships faster than ours, weapons stronger than ours, civilizations older than ours, they are all running. And they are right to run. Then why?" Yuna asked, her voice cracking slightly. "Why would you ask us to stay?" At that moment, another figure entered the observation deck. Dr. Hamza Qureshi, the ship's chief science officer, moved with the careful precision of someone who spent more time in laboratories than on battlefields. His silver-streaked beard and tired eyes spoke of countless sleepless nights studying the enemy. In his hands, he carried a data tablet that seemed to weigh more than it should. "Because someone has to bear witness," Hamza said softly, answering Yuna's question before Dominic could. "The silence does not just kill. It unmakes. The species it destroys are forgotten by the universe itself. Their languages, their art, their very existence vanishes from all records, from all memories." He tapped the tablet, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. It showed star systems, dozens of them, marked in red. "These worlds once held life," Hamza continued. "I should know their names. I studied them for decades. But now, when I try to remember, there is only emptiness. Like trying to recall a dream upon waking. The data exists in our computers, but our minds reject it, cannot hold it." Robert crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "So what are you suggesting? That we sacrifice ourselves just to be forgotten like all the others?" "No," Dominic said firmly. He walked to the holographic display and placed his hand through one of the red markers. "We stay because someone must remember. Someone must fight, even if the fight is hopeless. Because the alternative is to let the universe believe that extinction is acceptable if you run fast enough." Yuna stepped closer to the display. "The fleet is expecting us to retreat with them. If we stay, we will have 41 ships against their thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. It is suicide." "It is more than suicide," Hamza added grimly. "It is choosing to be erased. If we fail, and we will fail, humanity will be forgotten." Earth will become a name that no mouth can speak, a place that no mind can recall. Our children, our ancestors, our entire history will dissolve like salt in an endless ocean. Dominic looked at each of them in turn. I am not ordering anyone to stay. This is a choice each person must make. Any crew member who wishes to evacuate will be given passage on the civilian transports. No judgment, no record of cowardice. This is beyond duty or honor. This is about what we believe we owe to existence itself. The room fell silent again. Through the window, they could see a Kelvorian dreadnought, a ship 10 times the size of their own, accelerating toward the evacuation corridor. Its people had ruled 1,000 worlds for 8,000 years. They were running. Robert broke the silence first. My ancestors were warriors. When the slavers came to their shores, they fought even when chains were certain. When plague came to their villages, they tended the sick even knowing they would die. Running is wisdom. But some things matter more than wisdom. Yuna nodded slowly. My grandmother survived the Tokyo crisis. She used to tell me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is deciding that something else matters more than fear. I think I finally understand what she meant. Hamza adjusted his glasses, a small smile touching his lips. Well, someone should record this. For the archive that will never be read. Dominic felt something tight in his chest begin to loosen. Then we are agreed. Send word to the fleet. Humanity is staying. The message spread through human space like wildfire through dry grass. Within 6 hours, every human vessel capable of fighting had altered course. They came from mining operations in the asteroid belts, from patrol routes along the frontier, from escort duties with the fleeing civilian convoys. 41 ships became 73. Then 112. Then 196. Captain Dominic Reeves stood in the war room of the Valiant Dawn, surrounded by holographic projections of ship captains he had never met. Some were military, crisp and professional in their uniforms. Others were civilian freighter captains who had mounted whatever weapons they could find. One woman appeared to be broadcasting from what looked like a pleasure yacht that someone had welded plasma cannons onto. This is insane, said Captain Feng Wu of the cargo hauler Endless Horizon. She was a thin woman with sharp features and sharper eyes, her hands stained with engine grease. I have 6 torpedoes and a crew of 15. What exactly am I supposed to do against machines that eat memories? You are supposed to make them remember us, Dominic replied. Every shot fired, every second we hold them, every moment we refuse to vanish quietly into the dark. That is what we do. A gruff voice cut in. Pretty words, Captain, but words do not destroy enemy ships. The speaker was Gregor Volkov, commander of the mining vessel Iron Cathedral. He was a broad man with a shaved head and a mechanical arm that gleamed under the lights of his bridge. I have drilling lasers meant for asteroids, not warships. My people are miners, not soldiers. Lieutenant Yuna Tanaka stepped forward, her tablet glowing with tactical data. Then we use what we have. The silence moves in precise formations. They are machines, or something close to it. They follow patterns. If we can disrupt those patterns, create chaos in their ranks, we might survive long enough to matter. Survive long enough to be forgotten, you mean, another captain muttered. Dr. Hamza Qureshi activated a new display, showing the structure of a silence vessel. It was geometric, crystalline, beautiful in a cold and alien way. We have been studying the fragments recovered from destroyed coalition ships. The silence vessels operate on principles we barely understand. They phase in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. But there is something interesting. He highlighted a section of the enemy ship's core. They need to stabilize in real space to harvest memories. For approximately 47 seconds during each harvesting cycle, they become solid. Vulnerable. If we can force them to harvest prematurely, we can hit them when they cannot dodge. Commander Robert Okonkwo leaned over the display, his brow furrowed. How do we force them to harvest? They only do that after they have killed their targets. Unless they believe they have already won, Yuna said, her eyes lighting up with understanding. We send out false signals. Life signs, distress calls, memory signatures. We make them think we are already defeated, already dying. They will come in close to feed. Dominic studied the plan, feeling the weight of every life under his command. It is a trap that requires us to look like prey. We will need bait. I will do it, Feng Wu said immediately. My ship is small, fast. If anyone can dance around those things long enough, it is me. You will not be alone, Gregor added, his voice softening slightly. The Iron Cathedral can take a beating. We will draw their fire while you run the pattern. Over the next hours, the human fleet organized itself in ways that would have made any military academy weep. There were no unified command structures, no standard operating procedures. What they had was improvisation born of desperation and a stubborn refusal to die quietly. Freighter captains shared weapons with science vessels. Mining ships transferred their drilling crews to warships that needed damage control teams. A luxury liner gave up its fusion reactor to power the shields of 3 smaller craft. Yuna worked through the night coordinating communication protocols. Every ship had different systems, different languages in some cases. She built a network from spare parts and determination, linking vessels that had never been meant to fight together into something resembling a unified force. Hamza spent his time analyzing every scrap of data about the Silence. He watched recordings of their attacks until his eyes burned, searching for weaknesses in an enemy that seemed to have none. In the early morning hours, he found something. A slight delay in their response times when multiple targets appeared simultaneously. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. Robert gathered the Marine contingents from every ship into a single strike force. They were soldiers, security personnel, and more than a few volunteers who had never held a rifle before last week. He trained them in boarding actions, in close-quarters combat, in how to fight an enemy that could make you forget why you were fighting in the first place. Some of them cried during training. None of them quit. On the 3rd day, the scouts reported contact. The Silence had detected the human fleet and altered course. They were coming. Not with their full force, not yet. They sent a vanguard of 80 vessels, each one larger than humanity's biggest warship. They came with the confidence of predators approaching wounded prey. Dominic stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, watching the enemy approach on the display. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. No one spoke unnecessarily. No one panicked. They had made their choice, and now they would see it through. All ships report ready, Captain, Yuna announced. Her voice was steady, but Dominic could see her hands trembling slightly as they moved across her console. Signal the fleet, Dominic said. Today we teach the universe that some species do not go gentle into that good night. Today we remind the darkness that humanity knows how to rage. All ships, execute battle plan Thermopylae. Let them come. The human fleet broke formation, scattering like leaves in a storm. But it was not retreat. It was the beginning of the dance, the opening move of a strategy born from desperation and defiance. The Silence came forward, their crystalline ships gleaming with stolen light. And in the cold void between the stars, 2 forces that should never have met prepared to teach each other the meaning of war. The first shots lit up the darkness like newborn stars. Feng Wu's endless horizon streaked through the void, her small vessel weaving between the massive crystalline forms of the Silence ships. Behind her, 3 enemy vessels gave chase, their forms flickering in and out of reality like ghosts trying to become solid. Come on, you memory-stealing nightmares, Feng whispered to herself, her hands dancing across the controls. Just a little closer. Her ship shuddered as a beam of impossible energy grazed her shields. Alarms screamed. She ignored them. This was the moment. She activated the false life sign generators that Hamza had jury-rigged into her systems. To the silence, it would look like her crew was dying, their memories ripe for harvest. The enemy ship stabilized in real space, their crystalline surfaces opening like flowers preparing to feed. 47 seconds. That was all the time they had. Now. Dominic's voice cut through every ship's communication system. The Iron Cathedral emerged from behind a dead moon, Gregor Volkov's modified mining lasers blazing. The beams, meant to cut through solid rock, tore into the stabilized Silence vessels. At the same moment, a dozen other human ships opened fire from concealed positions. Torpedoes, missiles, kinetic rounds, everything humanity could throw converged on the feeding enemy. 2 Silence ships shattered, their crystalline forms exploding into fragments that reflected the light of distant stars. A third vessel managed to phase out, but not before losing a significant portion of its structure. The remaining Silence ships pulled back, regrouping. For the first time in their assault across the galaxy, they had encountered resistance that drew blood. On the Valiant Dawn, Yuna allowed herself a brief smile. Direct hits confirmed. We actually hurt them. Do not celebrate yet, Hamza warned, his eyes on the scanner displays. They are learning. Watch their formation pattern. They are adapting already. He was right. The Silence ships began moving in unpredictable patterns, no longer following the geometric precision they had shown before. They were changing their tactics, becoming something new in response to this unexpected threat. The battle raged for hours. Human ships darted in and out, striking and retreating, never staying in one place long enough for the Silence to focus their devastating power. It was exhausting, desperate work. The luxury liner Starlight Empress took a direct hit protecting a cluster of smaller vessels, her fusion core detonating in a blaze that pushed back 3 enemy ships. The mining hauler Deep Fortune rammed a Silence vessel when her weapons failed, her captain, an old woman named Patricia Brooks, singing an ancient song over the open channel as her ship became a funeral pyre. Robert led his Marines in a boarding action that should have been impossible. They used breaching pods to attach to a damaged Silence vessel, cutting their way inside. What they found there defied description. The interior was not metal or circuitry but something between solid matter and pure thought. The Marines fought through corridors that changed shape, against enemies that were barely physical. Half of them never made it back. But they planted charges in the enemy ship's core, and when those charges detonated, another piece of the Silence was destroyed. As the 8th hour of battle approached, the human fleet had been reduced to 132 ships. They had destroyed or damaged 19 enemy vessels. By any military calculation, it was a victory. But everyone knew the truth. The main Silence fleet was still coming. Thousands of ships that would arrive within days. This vanguard had been nothing more than a scouting force. Dominic sat in his command chair, exhausted beyond measure. Around him, his bridge crew worked with the mechanical precision of people too tired to feel fear anymore. Yuna had a bandage on her forehead from when a console had exploded. Hamza had not left his station in 14 hours. Robert's uniform was stained with blood, both human and something that was not blood at all. "Captain," Yuna said softly. "We are receiving a transmission. It is from the Galactic Coalition fleet." Dominic straightened. "Put it through." The holographic display materialized, showing Ambassador Kelvora. His scales had shifted to a color Dominic had never seen before, something between gold and silver. Behind him stood representatives from dozens of species, all watching with expressions that human eyes could barely interpret. "Captain Reeves," Kelvora began, his voice carrying a weight that transcended translation. "We have been monitoring your battle. What you have done should not have been possible. The Silence has never been wounded before. Never retreated. Never adapted its tactics because it needed to." Dominic said nothing, waiting. The coalition convoys have stopped their evacuation, Kelvora continued. Not all of them. Many are still fleeing, and I do not blame them. But some captains have asked themselves a question. If these young humans, barely children by galactic standards, can stand and fight, what does it say about us if we only run? The display shifted, showing dozens of massive warships altering course. Dreadnoughts that could crack planets. Carriers that held thousands of strike craft. Vessels powered by technologies humanity had barely dreamed of. We are returning, Kelvora said simply. Not because we believe we can win. But because you have reminded us that there are things worth losing for. You have given the universe something it lost long ago. Hope. Not hope for victory, but hope that someone will remember. That someone will care. That the light, no matter how small, will rage against the dying. Tears ran down Dominic's face. He made no effort to hide them. Around him, his crew was openly weeping, laughing, embracing each other. The main Silence fleet will arrive in 43 hours, Kelvora continued. We will face them together. Perhaps we will fall. Perhaps we will all be forgotten. But the universe will know, even if it cannot remember, that we stood here. That we fought. That we mattered. The transmission ended. Dominic stood, his body aching but his spirit soaring. He looked at his crew, these incredible humans who had chosen defiance over survival. Send word to all ships, he said, his voice strong. Tell them what is coming. Tell them they will have allies. Tell them that humanity did not start this fight alone, and we will not finish it alone. Una wiped her eyes and smiled. What do we do until they arrive, sir? Dominic looked out at the stars, at the darkness between them, at the approaching storm that would test everything they were. We do what humans have always done, he said. We survive. We adapt. We prepare. And when the darkness comes for us, we show it that some lights refuse to go out. In the cold void of space, the human fleet regrouped. Behind them, the greatest armada the galaxy had ever assembled was returning from its retreat. Above them, the stars watched. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the Silence felt something it had never experienced before. Uncertainty. The battle for existence had only just begun, but already the ending had changed. Not because humanity could win, but because they had proven that even facing oblivion, some species would choose to matter. And that choice, that single defiant choice, had lit a fire that would burn across the cosmos. Whatever came next, the universe would never be the same.